everyone, this is Johan and welcome. In this episode, I'm going to share this adorable patchwork bag project with you. This is a pretty simple bag. It has the slouchy silhouette. The finished measurement of this bag when it's expanded like this, it's about 16 inches wide by 11 inches long. When you wear this, the center is gonna collapse. So it has that droopy look. I think it's really chic. The strap itself, it's an adjustable strap. So you can adjust the length of this bag according to your liking. And of course there are some pockets inside, so there's one zipper pocket and 3 slip pockets as well. So I quilted this bag, so I use quilt batting as the interfacing. Obviously you can use any interfacing that you like. I don't recommend though you use something that is too heavyweight or too stiff, because you still want to have that nice slouch or drapey effect. For the patchwork, we're gonna use the jelly roll strips or the 2.5 inch strips. You will need only 4 strips, or you can also cut from yardage or use your leftover fabric or whatever it is that you have on hand. I hope you enjoyed this video, and of course if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me in the comment section down below. And without further ado, let's get started. Prepare 4 jelly roll strips. You can use prints, solid, in any color that you like. Open up the strip and lay that out straight on your cutting mat, just like that. First you want to trim off the selvage end. Measure 10 inches and cut, and then you want to go ahead and make another one. Now measure 5 inches and cut. So you want to cut 4 of these. Now you have 2 10 by 2.5 inch strips and 4 5 by 2.5 inch strips. Now go ahead and do exactly the same for the rest of your jelly roll strips. So here I've already cut all of my strips. Now take one 10 inch strip and one 5 inch strip, and then you're going to sew them together. So I'm going to pin them in place and then set this aside for now. Now I'm going to take another 10 inch strip and another 5 inch strip and then pin them together. So basically I'm gonna do this in one shot. So you can mix and match the strips the way you want to. There is no particular rule for this. Then go ahead and sew with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. So if you want, you can do chain piecing like me. This will make the whole process a lot faster. Press each strip to any direction that you want. So you should end up with 8 of these. Now you want to go ahead and sew each of them with the remaining 5 inch strips. So I'm going to take this one strip and then I'm going to randomly pick a 5 inch strip. Choose fabric that is different than the other 2 strips that were sewn together, and you can sew this to either side, it doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to pin them in place and set this aside and work the same for the rest of the strips. And then go ahead and sew with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Here I've got my strips already sewn and pressed. Next you want to take one strip and then you're going to meet the end of the strip just like that, right side together, and then pin them in place. And then go ahead and stitch with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. So you are kind of forming a loop just like that. Again, I'm going to do chain piecing, makes everything goes faster. So you will end up with 8 fabric loops. Now I'm going to take one fabric and then I'm going to make a cut somewhere at this longer fabric strip, the 10 inch one. So I'm going to arbitrarily just pick a spot where I'm going to cut, and then I'm going to make a fold line crease and then take my scissors and cut. Alright, so you'll end up with something like this. So you want to repeat the same principle for the rest of your fabric. Cut randomly around the 10 inch strip. There's no particular rule for this, although you may not want to cut too close to the either seam lines. So leave at least 2.5 inch offset from the seam line. Alright, so here I've got all of my strips ready to go. Now we're gonna move on and lay out the patchwork for the exterior shell, starting from the front exterior first. Lay out your strips and your accent strips just like shown here. So you will need 5 of the patchwork jelly roll strips and 2 accent strips for the top and the bottom as well. The measurements of the accent strips should be shown on the screen right now, or you can also hop over to the description box or my blog for the list of the measurements. Now we're gonna start sewing the strips together. So I like to do 2 rows at a time. So I'm gonna start from the first and the second row, place a few pins there, and then I'm gonna go ahead and sew with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Now I'm going to sew the 3rd and the 4th row together. Again, I'm going to place some pins. This time I'm going to change the direction of my sewing. Since previously I sew from this side, which is at my left hand side, this time I'm going to sew from the opposite side, which is from my right hand side, just like that. Changing the direction of your sewing when sewing strips together will help prevent your fabric from curving or becoming wavy towards either side. So you want to do this every so often. Alright, so here I've got my front exterior already sewn. Now we're gonna go ahead and work on the back exterior. So lay out your fabric just like that for the back exterior. Now go ahead and sew them together, of course with a 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Now go ahead and apply your interfacing. So I'm using my quilt batting here. Simply use a scrap that I have laying around. So I did something a bit different this time. So I positioned my quilt batting 1/2 inch down from the top. So you can see 1/2 inch gap at the very top right there. This will reduce so much bulk and make it a lot easier to do the final top stitching later. So I spray base this to make sure that the batting will not move around. Now for this project, since I want to do free motion quilting, I'm going to add a layer of fabric, which, you know, the quilt backing, so to speak. So I simply use a piece of scrap. You may use muslin or any cheap cotton fabric that you can find. This will also give a little extra body to the back without making it too stiff. This is optional though. If you're happy with only using the quilt batting, don't worry about it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and spray base this as well. Alright, now I'm gonna go to my sewing machine and quilt this. And here I've got both of my front and back exterior already quilted. So I did the pebbling design. I think it really added interesting texture to these pieces. Next, you're going to trim off the side edges, about 1/4 inch on each side. This way you will have a nice and clean edges to work with. So I've already trimmed mine. So now your pieces should be measuring 18 inches wide and the length should remain 13.5 inch. Now we're going to work on the interior pieces. So cut your lining exactly the same size as the exterior pieces. And you want to cut some rectangles for the slip pockets and for the zipper pocket as well. Now we're going to work on the slip pockets. So lay your pocket pieces right side together and then go ahead and sew the top and the bottom with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Once you've done that, go ahead and press the seams open. Then you want to turn the pocket inside out and give that another press and then top stitch along the top edges. Lay your pocket piece on the right side of your lining piece about 3 inches away from the top, just like that. We're going to divide this pocket into 3 slots. So take your ruler and your fabric marker and then you're going to measure 6 inches from the edge and then put a straight line mark right there. And then from this mark, you're going to measure another 6 inches and then again you're going to mark it with your fabric marker. Once you've done that, go ahead and stitch on the mark lines and the bottom as well. So here I've got my pockets already sewn together. Don't worry about the sides here, it's gonna get stitched anyway with the side seams. Next, you're going to work on the zipper pocket followed with the magnetic snap closures. Now, since I've already shown how to do this in many different videos, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to link partials of video. Simply follow the exact same instructions and steps. I will have the links in the description box and the comment section below as well. So go ahead and check them out if you need a tutorial for the zipper pocket and the magnetic snap as well. To create the depth of the back, we're going to draw 2.5-inch squares at the bottom corners of all of your back pieces. So I simply align my square ruler at 2.5-inch point and then use my marker to draw the square. And I'm going to do the same with the other side. Then I'm going to take my scissors and cut the square off. So you want to do the same for the back exterior and the lining pieces as well. Now we're going to assemble the exterior shell. So lay your front and back exterior right side together just like that. Then take some fabric clips and secure everything. Meanwhile, you want to match the seams of the jelly roll patchwork strips. Then go ahead and stitch the sides and the bottom as well with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. Once you've done sewing, you want to open the corner and then match the seams. Place a fabric clip to secure that and then go ahead and sew with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. So you should end up with something like this after you sew both of the corners. Now I'm going to turn this piece inside out and alright, looking great so far. Now you want to assemble the lining pretty much the same way as the exterior pieces. However, leave about 4 to 5 inches of opening at the bottom to turn this back inside out later. Now we're going to work on the strap anchors. So cut a rectangle measuring 5 by 4 inches. Now I'm going to fold this in half lengthwise and then press. Open the fold and then fold the edges towards the center fold and press. Then fold this in half again and press. So you will end up with a 1 inch wide strip. Now go ahead and sew the side edges with 1/8 inch of seam allowance. Now go ahead and cut this strip in half. So I simply measure 2.5 inch and then cut. So you will end up with 2 strap anchors. Insert the strap anchor through the D-ring just like that, and then you're going to place that on one of the sides of the back and then secure that in place with a fabric clip. And you want to do the same with the other side. Then stitch along the edges with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. For the strap, I simply cut a 4 inch wide strip from the width of the fabric or from one selvage end to another. So if you use quilt weight fabric, you should end up with roughly 42 inches long strip after you trim off the selvage ends. Fuse the strap with the fusible woven interfacing. So you want to cut your woven interfacing 2 inches wide and 1 inch shorter from the length of your strap, and position your fusible woven interfacing right on the center. So you should have 1 inch gap on both sides and 1/2 inch gap on both ends. Fold the end of your strap about 1/2 inch towards the wrong side and then press. Do the same with the other end of your strap. Now fold your strap in half and press, and then open the fold and then fold the edges towards the center fold and press, and then you're going to fold everything in half again and press. Then you want to sew all around the edges with 1/8 inch of seam allowance. Now it's time to assemble the back. First, I want to turn my exterior shell wrong side out and then keep the lining right side out. Insert the lining into the exterior shell, so the right side of the shell and the lining should be touching each other. Also, the front lining should be facing the front exterior, and of course the back lining should be facing the back exterior. Now I'm going to secure them in place with my fabric clips, starting from the side seams first and then all the way around. Now that everything is secured, we're going to go ahead and sew all around with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. Now, if you're using walking foot like I do, you may want to adjust the position of your needle. Move the needle all the way to the left, since the magnetic snaps may get in the way. Once you've done sewing, you want to turn the back inside out through the opening hole from the lining. Of course, this is the most exciting part of the whole bag making process. Now you're going to press the edges, make it nice and neat. You can use hair marker like I do here, or you can simply use iron on low setting. Now go ahead and top stitch along the edges. You can top stitch this either with 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance, whatever you're more comfortable with. Now you're going to sew the opening hole of your lining. Fold the raw edges in about 1/2 inch and then go ahead and sew along the edges. Once you've done that, put your lining back inside. So the last step will be to attach the strap to the back. Take your adjuster slider, hold that right side up, then take one of the end of your strap and then feed that from the wrong side towards the right side and then back to the wrong side. Have about 1.5 to 2 inches of clearance, just like that. Then go ahead and run a couple of stitch lines to secure this in place. Stitch back and forth a couple of times to make sure that your strap has extra bond. Now keep the strap with the end of the strap facing up, just like that. Now take the other end of the strap and then you're going to feed that through one of the D-ring from the inside towards the outside. Meanwhile, you want to make sure that there is no twist. Now you're going to feed this end of the strap to the slider from the wrong side towards the right side and then back to the wrong side, just like that. Pull the strap through and then double check again, make sure that there is no twist. Now you're going to insert this end of the strap to the D-ring from the outside towards the inside, just like that. Again, you want to have about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of clearance and then stitch a couple of lines to secure this in place. And that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you so much for watching and I shall see you next time with another fun sewing project. Goodbye!